Right, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining today's virtual conference. My name is Frazier Martins, and I'm your host for today. So, Freshworks and its partner Unbabel is glad to present this virtual session on the pertinent topic: 5 ways technology can help navigate customer service surges. Before we begin, I request everyone to please take a moment and go through the guidelines that have been displayed on your screen. There you go. We encourage you to ask more questions, and we request you to please type your queries in the questions section. These will be taken up in the Q&A session. You can use the chat section as well for sharing your views. A couple of tips though: we want to know you more, hence please mention your name and your company name when you post your question. You can also mention the person you are directing your question to. As you can see on your screens, there is a Q&A section and the chat section that will help you converse better with us. Let's take a quick look at the flow for today's session. Please refer to the agenda displayed on your screens right now. There you are, a promising agenda with an eminent lineup of speakers. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome and thank everyone for being a part of this virtual session today. Let's begin with the most awaited knowledge sharing and interactive session, then the panel discussion. The topic of today's panel discussion, as I said earlier, is 5 ways technology can help navigate customer service surges. We have some very interesting names here with us today. The session first up will be moderated by Ms. Naina Acharya, Associate Director, Dun & Bradstreet, India. Thank you, Naina, for joining us. Let me introduce to you the speakers joining us at the panel today. Our first panelist is Colin Crowley, CX Advisor, Freshworks. Thank you, Colin, for your kind presence.
Thank you, Frazier.
Joining him, we've got Grant Hartwig, Head of Tech Partnerships, Unbabel. Thank you, Grant, for gracing the session.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
We also welcome Tim Hines, Founder and Chief Marketing Officer, Marketing Starter Consulting Group. Thank you, Tim, for participating today.
Greetings. Thanks for having me.
And I welcome you all once again, and I'm going to hand it over to Naina to set the context and give a brief overview. Have a wonderful one, all of you. Over to you, Naina.
Thank you, Fraser, for the kind introduction. And I must say, quite an eminent lineup of leaders we have today. And before I actually dive in directly into the discussion, I would like to just set the context for today. We're living in a world where customers have got accustomed to the digital-first experiences. And this reality has completely changed the dynamics of customer experience. Now that the world is opening up and the customers are getting back to the in-store experiences, expectations of the customers have catapulted to a different level altogether. If you take a look at some observations of today's customers, the behavior of today's customers, primarily, the new customer wants it now. And this customer culture is basically dictating the terms of the business. They want the entire process to be simple and quick. The replacement of physical and digital patchwork with seamless omni-channel experiences is just something that they are used to now. They would prefer messaging and mobile-first conversations rather than any wait time reaching out to customer services employees. They want everything to be agent-empowered. They prefer to answer run-of-the-mill questions and queries by quick responses with absolutely zero turnaround time. It should be in a fraction of a second. They want the businesses to understand their needs and personalize the service, and if possible, preferably preempt their needs and preferences, thus saving them, the time to search and then to kind of decide as well. Most importantly, what you observe that today's customers want the business to understand the language that they speak in, and they don't want to repeat the same thing over and over again in a language that the business can understand. A complex situation, isn't it? Now, if this is what today's consumers look like, you can just imagine the task for businesses. Imagine the workload on your customer experience teams, and in return, the impact of the same on your business if you fail to curtail or for that matter, these challenges, or for that matter, even address them. So the question basically is that if you want to plan a customer experience strategy, at the core we must keep our customers in mind. And mind it, we are not talking about just our customers. Basically, every business deals with two types of customers. One is your internal customer, your employees, and then you have the external customers, your clients. So you have to make sure that both of them are equally kind of taken care of. Now, if you look at two back-to-back scenarios in the past 2 years, the customers have got the taste of ease and convenience, courtesy online engagement, and now they're back to the in-store, in-person experiences, and they've gone back to availing the connection, the empathy, which basically get only through personal connections. In summary, now businesses are grappling to get the perfect mix of digital technology coupled with human engagement in a bid to deliver seamless customer experience. The big question is how to create a perfect customer experience, which includes seamless integration of omni-channel avenues, as well as the ability to navigate. And because at the end of the day, it's quite possible that most of the companies will move to a permanent hybrid work environment. So the dire need primarily for businesses is, how are they able to manage their queries and identify which can be automated, and how you can manage the entire automation process, learn how they can create quality conversations without, and how to manage language barriers, understand how they can manage the way their agents work, basically create a smart environment for them. Now, all of us understand that in an ideal situation, creating a strategy usually works, and it can be implemented with ease. The issue is when you have to bite more than you can chew. And that is during surge periods. What will work? We have, what will work, what will not, we don't know. And just to understand this in detail, it would be great first to have a short poll, which will be now featured on your screen. And I'd urge everyone to please do share your preferences, because this basically will form the premise of the first question and, of course, the entry into the leaderboard. So can we please have the poll on the screen? Well, I can see. Says, it's the festive season and John is a support agent who finds it difficult to handle the surge of customer support tickets. How would you help John handle this? Just wait for a couple of seconds for the answer. Let's wait for what people have to say. Can we please have the answer up on the screen? Oh, wow. So we've got 81% of our attendees who've said that in this case, we use AI and technology to help them. And it's quite amazing because this is definitely not a surprise, but at the same time, it's good to see that the adoption is increasing. And with this context, I would like to kind of ask the first question to my panelists. Can you share some examples? All of you are industry leaders, and I'm sure you must be having customers reaching out to you. So can you share some examples of when a surge in a customer support might occur? Colin, would you like to go first?
Happy to. Few examples from my past. I used to be in the event entertainment space with a company that served as an intermediary for ticket buyers and ticket sellers. So one thing was ticket on sales. So you have a big on sale date for a concert or sporting event or what have you, and you would see a huge onrush of incoming calls of people asking to buy certain tickets for their favorite concert artist. So that's one big thing that comes to mind. I would say as well, delivery related issues. So it can be situational, but if there are certain supply chain issues with ingredients or goods getting to a business, or similarly, you have weather related issues that prevent orders from being delivered appropriately to customers when they expect that, then you can have also an onrush of issues coming in from customers. I'd say one last thing could be big product launches. So you have a big product launch on your end, or something like that, or a new new item for sale or something. Then obviously that can also encourage a huge surge.
Okay. How about you, Grant?
Yeah, I think pretty spot on there. But when I think of surges and customers are planning out their strategies, there's really two buckets, right? There's planned surges and there's unplanned surges. So you've got the planned surges where if you're retail, it's Black Friday, it's the holiday season. You're a tech company, you're a gaming company. Just like Colin said, you've got a product release, you've got a game that's coming out, or maybe it's a travel company and it's you're approaching peak travel season during the summer. So those are all planned in a sense, but then you've got the unplanned ones as well that you've got to equip your teams to actually handle, and those are the service outages, or in travel and hospitality, sometimes you have natural disasters that occur and you've got to be equipped to deal with. Or the one that I think we've all lived over the last couple of years, right, is certainly COVID. We had cases where this really created the perfect storm in a sense, where we've got one of our customers deals with gaming hardware, and if y'all remember that period of time in early 2020 when offices shut down, right? I remember in San Francisco, it was March. It was that middle week of March, and offices shut down. So everyone goes home. There's no restaurants, and so at that time there was actually a surge in gaming, right? Gamers had more time on their hands to use these systems. So for gaming hardware, it was a scenario where sales increase, usage increases, and now you're seeing surges of service volumes. And at the same time, it was when those call centers were actually transitioning to home because they had to close. So you're dealing with all sorts of unplanned surges as well there, and sometimes it does lead to that perfect storm. And I'm sure for some of the folks on the call there that is a little bit of PTSD there, but there's a whole host of scenarios.
Wow. Advantage to some and disadvantage to some as well, I guess. How about you, Tim? Some examples for us?
Yeah, well, I kind of like the way that Grant just laid that out, which is the planned and unplanned. And from the marketing perspective that I'm coming from, I think it's interesting the way that marketing has to kind of serve as an internal service provider to various organizations. And one big one happens to be the customer success and customer service teams. And so knowing that there are going to be planned ones like product releases, those are huge, right? I've been a part of many product launches where we have to gear up the customer success team, both to educate current customers, let them know what's happening around product launches. We have to plan go-to-market strategies, and that include press releases and advertising and all kinds of alerts related to things that are going to be actually coming out in the public. And so we have to be prepared for that. And so there's a lot of preparation that goes into that. But I think you also have to budget, whether you're on the customer service or customer success team or on the marketing team for that matter, even the sales team, you have to be prepared for those things that are also unplanned, right? Is to have a little bit of bandwidth and a little bit of budget for expectation of like, we're in this specific industry. And to the example of travel that Grant was using, there's so many things that impact travel related to a surge or even an anti-surge, like the COVID example, and now it's surging right back up again. I live in Austin, and I don't know if anyone's seen the news recently, but the airport has been surging like crazy, so much so that people are abandoning their rental cars on the entrance road to the airport because they're like, I got to get to my flight, and they're leaving the car, right? So there's surges all over the place. So I think it's our job as professionals to also kind of plan for those. And so that's something from my experiences on when I've worked with customer service teams is trying to understand like, okay, what percentage of should we be budgeting for related to surges, and then how can we better be prepared and be enabled for those things? And so I think it's the amount of proactivity for both types, the planned and the unplanned. But you know that there's going to be a certain percentage of unplanned that happened, that are going to happen, and so you're just being prepared for those, I think, is key to the success of the customer service team.
Couldn't agree more with you, Tim. In fact, I was also going to say that I love the way Grant put it. The plan surges, we can always create some backup plan or some strategy too, but the unplanned ones just come, right? So then the next question is that if there are a couple of pain points and we don't get time to really prepare for it, then how can a customer experience team plan which technology or identify which technology can help? So it would be good to know some examples, some points from all three of you on the pain points that the customer experience teams go through, especially during these surges, and how technology actually helps them out. And also, if you are compelled to invest in technology, what are the questions you would need to ask yourself before investing in technology? I mean, we started with Colin in question number 1. I would like to start with Grant in question number 2.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think you probably saw right off the bat from the poll when the question was around dealing with surges, and right, you've got hire more people or leverage technology and AI to address it. And I think just the overwhelming answer for most of the folks on the call, B, of use technology, just indicates, first of all, our willingness and our appetite to actually consume and use technology. I think, the first thing that brands generally need to ask themselves when they're looking at scenarios like this is this a challenge? Is this a problem that can be solved by people, by process, or by technology? And likely it's probably a combination of the three, right? But nowadays there's so much technology out there that addresses, pain point by pain point. However, in order to really take advantage of those, you've got to have the right people and process in place. You've got to have the right folks internally that have bought on board and are willing to kind of adopt and move forward with these technologies as you go. As far as surges are concerned, and some of the pain points that we hear, that there's just an incredible amount of technology to help with now, you'll see things like really high first response times, or very long average handle times, which then cascade down into impact on the end customer in the form of low CSAT or low NPS. Those are some of the things that I think most of us in the CS tech field listen for, because now there's so many different ways that you can leverage omni-channel solutions, chatbots, conversational AI, language technology. I think we'll get into those in a second, but those are generally some of the things that I know we listen for as pain points that can be addressed now by technology. Yeah.
Perfect. Tim, how about you? Some thoughts to ponder on?
I like that combination and throwing the levers of the people, the process, and the technology, and like finding the harmonic balance that's going to work best for your company. I think sometimes in all sectors of business, we're very quick nowadays just to throw a tech solution at something to fix a problem. And sometimes it can just be a Band-Aid, not necessarily the right fix. So it is finding that perfect balance between the things. And I think one of the trends that we're seeing, especially on the customer service side, when handling, well, just inbound in general. I mean, maybe you have a super popular product, and people are very highly demanding of it. Again, I could keep going back to this travel example. I'm thinking of like how much travel is being affected by the changes in customer service, but there's so many other ones that I think that you can look for great tech like bots and AI and chats and different forms of communication that I think marketing can also help the customer success team set up properly, like on the website and through various other mediums. I mean, for myself, sometimes I go directly to a chat on a company website, or I hit them up on a social media channel to handle my customer service issue, rather than maybe picking up the phone like I used to. But the phone is still there, right? The email is still there, and I can even still write a handwritten letter to and send it in if I wanted to. Also, it's not like that's eliminated; it's just being supplemented, and it's finding that balance that's going to work. And so I think bots and technology and AI and all of those things are great, and they're kind of like the hot button, super popular things to talk about. But I don't think that they're ever going to replace the person that is on the customer service team. They're there to supplement and help. And I think we see that with like chatbots that for like you go to a website, it's like, how can I help you? What is your question? And it takes you have to type agent sometimes 5 times before you actually get to a real person. And sometimes you need to, but sometimes you can get those questions answered or that customer service issue resolved through a bot or through AI before you have to go over to a person. So it helps to actually alleviate and make that person, the actual human's time, more valuable. And I think that should be something that's considered as not like, this is not a one size fits all in the same way. It's not a complete takeover. It's not the single bullseye solution. It's something that helps to supplement.
Perfect. In fact, I just remember an example one gentleman gave in one of the conferences saying, chatbots need not always be the ultimate kind of solution. It's so important that they understand us, because if there was one example that he gave saying that, thank you so much for sending my luggage to, for example, Calicut instead of, Calcutta. And the bot replied saying, we're very happy we serviced you. And he was like, okay, what is this? So sometimes it's so important to make sure that you get that empathy. You understand that the language also matters a lot. So I guess you said it, these are the challenges. Colin, last but not the least, I'd be very interested to know your point of view as well.
Yes, yeah, I definitely agree with what Tim and Grant were saying, and I'll just kind of add some additional color from my experience. I think that the point of proactivity, as Tim was talking about, is really important. So not only the ability to plan some sort of communication strategy ahead of time. So even though you have events that you can't plan for, you can plan out how you're going to respond to events, generally speaking, and what processes you're going to follow when they occur to ensure those are as streamlined as possible. But also the abilities that the technology gives us to try to be a little bit more proactive. So the idea of, using a chat bot, for instance, proactively to engage customers on your website, for instance. If you know a customer is surfing your site and they're from a certain zip code and you've been told by your carrier due to a weather event or supply chain issues or what have you, that there could be an abnormally large number of delays with orders in a particular region, that there's a warning that you could send those customers as they're navigating your site that there's a possibility their order could be delayed a day or two. Or also being able to get ahead of issues where if you have good listening posts available and you suspect that there could be delays or problems coming down the pike, being more proactive, letting customers know even if you email them ahead of time. On the chatbot front also is a really good example, but also provides some good flexibility as well. So even if you have like an unplanned event, it's usually pretty easy if you're using a good chatbot service, where if you identify there's an issue, you can go in there and you can create or craft certain conversational flows that would address those issues for customers, and at least try to have the bot respond to those issues rather than have the bot be confounded or otherwise unnecessarily escalate to an agent when that may not be necessary. One last thing I'll add in there as an example is, if you have good routing systems in, let's say, a ticketing system you're using, you can deal with surges better if you have specialized agents who are more adept at answering questions related to those particular issues. So if you're able to identify a customer who has an issue related to whatever is causing the surge, rather than having that customer go to a general pool of agents who may ask unnecessary questions or not be so adept at answering their particular questions that the conversation drags on, you can try to route those conversations to a specialized team of agents that you appoint for that purpose, and try to get faster resolutions and try to clear up some of the backlogs that you're experiencing.
Absolutely. I mean, and at the end of the day, if any business wants to invest money in technology, there could be a couple of questions. Everything boils down to cost, honestly, for most of the businesses. So we would need to kind of also ask questions like, would this reduce, your labor cost? can you achieve more with the less number of agents? And whatever you embark on, will it improve the customer experience, or will it increase the agent productivity? I mean, there are a lot of questions, but there are a couple of things which are quite imperative, which will become a part of your investment decision. So now that we know the what kind of is a problem, let's look at now how can we address these problems. And that is basically the soul of the leaderboard today, on the 5 ways technology can actually help navigate search. So my question to first, of course, Colin, is that so we've touched on a couple of examples on how technology can help kind of manage search, but let's discuss 5 key technologies that can actually help you during search. So Colin, you've been working with Freshdesk, and you've been kind of addressing a lot of challenges. So it would be great for us to know your point of view on this particular question on 5 key ways how technology can actually help you during search. Colin?
Yeah, I'd be happy to jump in. I'll kind of give you a few examples, and then kind of let Grant or Tim jump in as well. Definitely one area is kind of a good segue, because we're just talking about it, is having a ticketing system that's robust enough that allows you to triage incoming contacts more appropriately, and also not only triage them, but have more reporting capabilities. So in the moment when you're experiencing a surge for some reason, not only do you have better capabilities of understanding there's a surge and what's causing the surge, but through that information, you have a better roadmap for how you're going to handle it. So when you're looking at ticket management systems like what we have as an example, you have routing. So more intelligent routing, like I mentioned in the case of routing to a specialized team, or routing escalated issues to a specialized team based on keywords. Or if you have a system that has open APIs, which is very, very easy to connect your homegrown order management system into the fray. So you have information about who these customers are when they contact you, and you may be able to identify, oh, if a certain surge is relegated to a certain region, etc., and you know where that customer is located, or a certain surge is associated with certain challenges associated with certain orders, then you can automatically make sure that those customers are routed to special teams of people as well through that technology. So routing is one way. And then another way, again, is if you have a system where you're automatically tagging your contacts, as an example, based on keywords through different automations, then that may help you identify where a surge is coming from, as an example. So you understand, oh, a surge is coming from this particular area, this particular concern, and at least allows you to respond quicker to that surge. And similarly, if you have a robust reporting system where you're able to look at dashboards and easily able to identify when you have spikes in volume, so that you can respond as quickly as possible as well. And then lastly, I would say a ticketing system that has native capabilities when it comes to different AI technologies, so different agent assist technologies. So if there is a surge and there's a certain type of information that agents need to convey to customers, there are technologies there that can assist agents, either by surfacing them SOPs or important templates that they need to use to appropriately triage the situation with the customers who are contacting you. That could be another great way to kind of speed through those contacts faster than would normally be the case. I would say another thing I'll kind of throw in there too is embracing the omni-channel experience. So even though I just was talking about tickets, we live in a world, as you were saying, Naina, that there are many different types of contact channels all over the place, and they're multiplying by the day. And we're living in a world where there's live chat and social messaging all over the place, and Apple Business Chat and SMS and WhatsApp and so forth. So embracing a system that has that omni-channel experience is also really key, because a lot of these newer channels coming down the pike are inherently more efficient channels. So when you think of things like live chat and social messaging, with the fact that you can have conversations, multiple conversations handled simultaneously by agents, so up to maybe 3 or 4 or 5 based on the nature of your business, that hugely makes situations like surges much more bearable when you can use agents much more much more efficiently. And also those types of channels are well versed in the bot space. So whereas email and phone have more limitations in terms of how you can use bot technology because they're more static in the case of email, or have certain complexities in the case of phone. In the case of live chat and social messaging channels, you have a lot of capabilities when it comes to using bots in some intelligent way. Again, at least to help triage issues, if not to deflect issues. But it all depends on using a system where you have that omni-channel experience. And also provides assistance too if you have customers who are contacting you across multiple channels, which may well be the case in a surge situation where customers are nervous, where you have a full view of what the customer has been told and who they've contacted and so forth. It kind of allows you to deal with escalated situations in a smarter framework as well.
Absolutely, couldn't agree. I mean, I was listening so intently with you because to you, Colin, because ultimately we are dealing with a customer who's spoiled for choices. So it is just difficult for businesses, and omni-channel is actually the only way to be able to cater to all of them. Tim, you've been in the industry long enough, and you've seen probably both sides of the business. So I would be very interested to know, when it comes to omni-channels, what have you observed? Is there a line where you can draw, or it's just the entire universe or galaxy that we'll have to explore as a business?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there's a couple ways that you kind of look at the channels that you're going to use for your omni-channel approach, and I think that there's a million things that you can do and a bunch of different methods on rolling those out, but you have to decide like what is going to be best for your business use case, because not every business is the same. Not every business has the same amount of volume. Maybe you're in a B2B business versus a B2C business. So it's going to be much different, the different types of tools that you're going to need to use. I've worked in B2B quite a bit. Things like knowledge bases, super big in B2B, right? If you're in a B2B SaaS technology company, you're most definitely going to want to have one of those, a place that you can actually point customers to get their questions answered as they're rolling out or working on their platform and getting it set up and tuned up for them. Maybe before you even acquire the customer, and as you're going through the sales journey, you have a sales engineer that's actually part of setting up the technology for the company. I worked for a company in Universal Communications, and they were replacing those old telephone closets that they had in offices, and bringing companies onto a web-based platform. So they needed like a sales engineer that actually helped and showed them how that they can actually get the system set up. So they were already set up for success before they actually even became customers. So I think there's different use cases that you have to look at for, again, the people, the processes, and the tech that all come together. And yeah, there are so many different types of technology out there, but it's finding those ones that I think not only meet the general customer expectations to what you said, Nia, about that they expect it to be omni-channel. They have this expectation that they can chat with you anywhere at any time and be able to get their questions answered. But there's also nuance to your industry too, and how that is going to be received. And there's also nuance in your industry of how the surges and the changes will affect you too. And so I think those are two important things. And one of the things that as a marketing person, I always say, there's no new idea. There's only new ways of implementing old ideas. And when I'm working on like my go-to-market strategies and other things in marketing, I always go and look at like, hey, what are my competitors doing in the space that is working really, really well? Granted, whoever's listening to this, you're probably not the only company in your sector. So you can probably go look at some of other companies and see like how they're handling this kind of stuff, and glean some great ideas from them, and maybe talk shop with some other customer success people, customer service people, and attend webinars like this one, where you can see what else people are doing within your industry and the things that you can implement, the processes that you can set up. So I think that's kind of my little take on it, is that there's not, hey, do implement this technology and this process and these 5 things and you'll be successful. There are some groundwork ones that will obviously help you out. Like a lot of the stuff that Colin was talking about is fantastic. I just think you want to also add a layer on that, which is like, just look at the nuance of your industry and the nuance of your customer, and make sure that those are the things that work well within the sector you're playing in.
Thanks, Tim. Because I've realized that for businesses today, there is no full stop when it comes to learning. They have to learn, or rather skill, reskill, upskill. and you kind of repeat the entire process, and it's all a learning process. But there before, I mean, I've got a very interesting question for Grant, but I would just like to give a little bit of example, because people have different ways of saying the same thing. Some may say, give me a hard copy. Some may say, give me a Xerox. Some may say, just give me a print. It's the end result is the same, but there are 3-4 different ways of asking the same thing. Language has become a little complex, and when we are moving more towards robotic agents or chatbots, how is this barrier kind of how do we cross this barrier? What sort of language technology is prevalent today? What does it do? I mean, I would be really interested in understanding how will this benefit basically or rather lead to good customer experience. So Grant, over to you. I mean,
it's a good question, and I think Tim probably had a good line there at the end of his, where he was saying, you've got to look, every customer is a little bit different. I think Colin's points around the actual infrastructure of the ticketing systems and the omni-channel systems and reporting behind all of that is like the foundation. Like that is absolutely crucial to really every customer there. But then you look at different brands, different corporations that are doing business, especially when it comes to doing business across language barriers and internationally, right? I saw, I think it was a few years ago, there was a report that said by like 2020, 2021, customer service was going to be the biggest differentiator and the reason that consumers buy a product more than the product itself. And I can't remember what the other one, but it was ultimately like more than the product itself. Customer service is really that defining, differentiating component why consumers buy. And part of that is brands want to provide a uniform, high quality customer experience, customer service to every customer, regardless of language that they speak. But it becomes really, really difficult, especially when you're considering about 75% of the world doesn't speak English, right? There's, so many languages you need to really take into account. And if you tie this back into the concept of surges, right? Let's say you're a tech company and you see a surge in the volume of German tickets. It's hard enough to go find and hire, let's say, German-speaking agents that are generalist agents. But if you're a complex solution or a tech company, right, now you're going out and you need to hire German-speaking service agents, but with a specific domain knowledge or technical experience. And now your pool of possibilities becomes smaller and smaller. And I think this is where some of the advancements in machine translation, machine learning, NLP are presenting some really exciting opportunities in language technology. So for the most part, you see the generic machine translation engines like the Google Translates and Amazon's, they're still not where they need to be, right, to be adopted for an enterprise brand in a way where they're going to stake their brand on a customer service experience. But now you've got players like Unbabel here, where we're building machine translation engines, one specifically for the customer service use case rather than general use case, and then two, we're building them based off of or training them specifically for a specific customer, as well as down to the specific brand. Actually training these models with data and style guides and glossaries and things like that. And then to go a step further, you're layering in humans to actually improve the output of the machine translation and to continuously improve the machine translation engines over time. So you're seeing this kind of marriage of human and AI, especially in language technology right now. And ultimately, when you remove language from the customer service equation, customers are just better equipped to handle surges like this, because now you can spread volumes, like in the German tickets example, you can spread those volumes over any available customer service agent, or you can hire more quickly or faster because faster and cheaper because you're not taking into account those language needs necessarily. So I think it will be fascinating to see how that continues to advance. And obviously, a lot of customers in the space right now in both the B2C and B2B realm are taking advantage of those and really using those to combat surges.
You should come to India, Grant. You'll have to deal with over 100 languages. So I'm just waiting for Unbabble to enter.
Exactly. Then you start factoring in, right, the dialects, different languages. It's incredibly complex.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. It's going to be a terrible time for you here, just in case you plan to. Well,
yeah, I'll jump in and also just compliment what Grant said is that we have Freshworks. We're a global company, so we have customers all over the world. So the use case he was presenting is definitely really relevant, both for us as a company when it comes to being able to engage customers, but for also when we're providing our own customers. So businesses who are looking to find ways of engaging with their clients, and when we have our own like native chatbot technologies that customers are investing in. But yeah, it's very, very common that we have customers who are dealing with consumers on their end across multiple boundaries and multiple languages, and you can invest all you want in building up your infrastructure of tickets and your chatbots, but if you don't have the ability to be able to service customers in different languages, then you're obviously very, very limited in your ability to use that. And I myself in the past, even in a context where you're not like in the middle of Europe someplace and you have French speakers or German speakers over here, and you're in an environment where there are a lot of languages competing, but even like in the US context, if you're looking at expanding into the Spanish language market, as an example, when you've just been more focused on the continental US, and you've built this great infrastructure with your chatbots and everything, and now you're faced with the task of having to translate every single conversational flow you have into another language, which if you're using bot technology robustly is not a very feasible thing to do in any time-sensitive manner. So yeah, it's a huge use case to give value to all these tools that you can have to protect against surges.
Absolutely, Colin. And this is the need of the hour. It's an imperative. It's not a nice to have kind of part for your business. If you look at today's customers, they are all empowered. And when it comes to free will to give their point of view, I think social media is what they use to voice out their opinions, good, bad, ugly, and that can really tarnish any business, or for that matter, even lead to adverse customer experience without us even knowing. So that's where I think, social media listening becomes very, very critical for all businesses. And this question is to all three of you, because I'm very sure in some capacity or the other, you must have experienced it. My question is basically, what does your social media listening tools do, and how do they actually benefit customer experience teams and customers and businesses, and how does it help to minimize the impact of the surge? So anyone can take a stab, so I'll just leave it to you. Tim, would you want to start, or putting you in the spot though?
Well, I mean, social media listening is a great tool for marketing as well, and I think it's something that as like a line item on a budget can be employed by both teams. So you can roll it out to your customer service team, your marketing team. On the marketing front, we use it an awful lot to understand like how we can speak the language of customers and help get the right message out there, and make sure we're using the hashtags that the customers are using. And like a lot of times businesses try to like create their own and try to push them out there instead of forcing an issue. It's like you want to use ones that are maybe most common, that are most resonating. So there's a lot of great tools out there that do that on the marketing front, but then also on that customer service front, because it's going to help you really understand like what that overall sentiment is like about your brand. You can obviously implore tools and like have a team of people that can be dedicated just to monitoring those things. I think of like even like local businesses when they're using like Google Business and stuff like that, and people leaving reviews and comments, and you're only as good as the amount of, or the ability for you to take action to those things. And so you can have a great social listening tool. You can have profiles and pages and everything galore across social media, but if you don't have someone who is necessarily dedicated to monitoring those things, to responding to those things, to taking action from the data that they're actually getting and making those changes, then you're spinning your wheels and wasting your time. So it's kind of one of those things that you need to go, I don't necessarily say go big on, but make sure that you have a good infrastructure in place with your social listening, so that way like you actually can focus and listen, because sometimes you might be doing so many other things, just dealing with like a surge that's coming in, that you might not even have the ability to take a look at what's happening in your social listening, because you're just being bombarded directly. And so I would make sure that you're figuring out ways, again, of folding that in, you're budgeting that into your time on your customer service plan, for you to kind of go out and be more proactive, because you could pick up on a trend about your brand or about your service that people are talking about before a surge even happens. So it could be very proactive to employ social listening. So I'm all about it if you can, but just make sure that you have built in some time to be able to check in on those things, or having a person maybe who's championing that for you on your customer service team.
Always better if you're able to preempt, isn't it? Because sometimes social listening also helps you, mitigate your risk by first identifying that there could be a potential risk. This is a very interesting take, though. We're running a little short out of time, but Grant and Colin, would you want to add something more to this, or can we move to the next question? You want to add something more?
I think Tim hit the nail on the head from my standpoint.
Yeah, I would agree that it really comes down to social media is a great tool for understanding proactively when a surge may be occurring, because people are usually more purposeful when they're using social media to communicate, versus issues can be kind of lost amid the din of tickets that you have coming in, or large numbers of chat. So yeah, it's more of a canary in the coal mine in many circumstances.
Wow. One thing that was crossing my mind over and over again is that many companies do have their existing systems. Some could be legacy, some could be systems that they have invested in the recent past, and then they've realized that the market has changed. So it's very important to understand that whatever technology we invest in, it is easy to integrate it into the existing system. New, then great, there's no problem. But I am just trying to understand that, since we briefly touched upon the importance, of the three couple of aspects, like your chatbots, your integration of AI, ML, related to language, then social listening. So how do we integrate all this? And Colin and Grant, I was wondering that if you could share more on how Freshworks and Unbabel have come together with this integration to deliver exceptional customer experience, irrespective of what language the customer queries come from, then that would really give us a good example on seamless integration of two services which are complementing each other. So Colin, I mean, you can begin, and then afterwards, Grant, you can just add on. Colin?
Sure. Yeah, I'll jump in by saying that when we're talking about surges and the theme that time is of the essence, and that everyone is used to max capacity, the last thing that you want to be dealing with during that period of time is anything unnecessarily administrative. So when you're talking about seamless integrations, those are really imperative, not only to have efficiency in your everyday operations, but to ensure when you do have surges that your time is spent either strategically addressing those surges or moving the resources where you need them to go. And having a tight integration like our two companies have, in sort of wedding together those resources to empower you to communicate across multiple languages in these advanced channels that are keys for addressing surges. Having that seamless integration is a huge component that you wouldn't get if you had a clunkier integration or using another third party that was sitting on top of your pre-existing systems, and you're having to deal with some of the reporting and data complexities associated with that. So yeah, it really ties into the theme that time is of the essence, and any administrative or technical baggage you don't have the time for during periods of surge.
Yeah, I think good point. We probably could have even touched on this one back when we were looking at the criteria for looking at and evaluating technology, right? When you're originally evaluating technologies, you need to make sure that it's going to integrate with the other systems that you ultimately lose. And I think Colin right here just said, right, when you're dealing with surges and all these uncertainties, the last thing you want to do is add in unnecessary complexities and different things for the agents to learn. And I think that's one of the great components about the integration between our two companies, right? Is you've got these this kind of best in class omni-channel system, service system in Freshworks and in Freshdesk. And then the language operations power of Unbabel. And what that does is, right, it allows agents to work in their existing environments and now handle multilingual service inquiries really across any language barrier. But the other value proposition is agents operate in their existing workflow. So I think that's another big component when you're looking at different systems, technologies. It's how will they speak to each other? How will they work together? Offer maximum impact, maximum ROI with minimal disruption. So that's yeah.
Wow, that's a win-win situation for any business from where I see. So that's really great. Right in time, and we have got one question. We'll just move to the Q&A session. We've got one question that I can see here from Alan Goldschmidt, and he's addressed it to all the panelists. His question is as follows. Are there ways to handle surges in the same way that cloud services are elastic? Scale up for the surges and then scale down during normal times. So anyone can take a stab at it. Who would like to answer this question? Would you want me to repeat the question?
Well, I would say I'll jump in and just provide some insight into that. So I think there are different ways that you can respond to that. I think there's some ways that you can respond to that organizationally in terms of how you structure your organization, knowing that there may be times where you need to inject a large number of agents into the equation for something that's time sensitive. So there are ways that you can plan for that in terms of using other people in the company or other people in your customer support infrastructure who may not naturally be inclined to handle tickets. And that actually ties back to technology again, I would say, because if you're injecting people into a situation where they're not normally the agents handling issues, then having technology like agent assist technology, like I mentioned previously, that we have in our system that helps to provide answers and recommendations for people who are not as well versed in the everyday handling of issues can really help. Otherwise, it's hard to just inject people into the system who are not everyday handlers of tickets or handlers of chats. So combining technology and the standardization and consistency and support assistance you can get from AI technologies in various ways, and with an organizational strategy that kind of allows you to input people in when you need to strategically, that can be one way that you can try to be elastic and solve some of those challenges.
Thank you, Colin. We've got one question, and the writer prefers to remain anonymous. Well, the question is as follows. How can you convince other stakeholders that the investment in technology is necessary? Wow.
Yeah. Well, I guess my input here is it's certainly easier when you can build ROI models and things to actually prove that this is going to be worth it. In the language technology space, it's pretty black and white. It's pretty easy because you can say, it costs this much to hire native speakers, and it actually costs 50% less to have English speakers with language technology like Unbabel layered on top. For the other different solutions out there, for the hot conversational AI companies and chatbots, building ROI models around how those add value to your company through deflections, reductions of escalations to agents, the reduction in handling times and things like that. If you can put ROI and dollar values to those, everyone has an easier time having those conversations internally, I'd say.
Couldn't agree more, Grant. Our next question is a very simple question, but extremely pertinent. Do you have any advice on how to ensure our agents aren't stressed out during peak periods? It's a very simple question, but very, very important. Well,
Yeah,
Tim,
that-
Tim, I think you should. Yeah, who would like to go? Sorry, Grant, would you like to answer, or is it Tim?
I think Colin was going to hop in too, but I guess my first answer is right. There's a balance of having the right level of volumes that service agents can actually handle. There is most customer service agents like varying complexities of cases, not handling all the exact same case all the time. So there's different things that you can do to ensure that agents stay engaged with interesting and variety of complexity of cases, but also the right workload, which I think we've talked about a lot over the last hour. You can maintain that right relevant level of workload through a lot of the technologies that we've talked about.
And buy them some pizza and beer.
And exactly.
All right.
for anyone for that matter, I think
That's right. It's surge time. Let's chow down and crack a couple cold ones, right?
Well, we don't have time here in India to celebrate, but I'm very sure you have the rest of the day. So, Colin, did you want to add something, or can I move to the next question?
Yeah, the only thing I'd add in there in terms of some other strategies intermixed with all that, I would say one thing to consider is the technology choice you make from the get-go could have a big impact, because if you're using a system that's easier and more intuitive to maneuver, that will inherently be associated with higher agent satisfaction. That will especially show in issues of crises or surge, where it's easier for agents to navigate through the system. The use of chatbots also is an example of that. So aside from helping to downplay surges, it also can take some of the routine and mundane issues that kind of draw on agents away from them. So they're not handling that steady drumbeat of issues coming in, and that kind of releases some of the pressure. The other thing is, if you have a robust reporting system, so you're really understanding how agents are performing, then you can use that data to feed into incentive programs or recognition programs, especially during times of high stress, to make sure people are feeling recognized. But again, it all comes down to having data targets. So like if you wanted to kind of encourage agents to really to push ahead, having clear SLA targets that you can advertise, and then through your reporting system being able to recognize top performers and reward them.
Well, Colin, I don't know whether this is premonition or what, because the next question is actually something that you touched upon right now, and which says, what matrices or KPIs should we be looking at during this time to track performance? So I guess you could answer it.
Sure, I'll jump in and give opening salvo. So one thing on a pure efficiency level is if you have some sort of like utilization metric, which you can look at different ways. So you could look at that in terms of number of tickets or chats handled per hour, but there also may be ways that you can build in some more complexity to your utilization concept, knowing that not all tickets or contacts are created equal. So you could have, and systems that have custom metrics, for instance, enable you to do this in your reporting, where you assign a certain number of points to certain types of contacts. And then you have a certain expectation of how many points over the course of an hour a high-performing agent should be able to answer. So that's one key way for you, at least you to understand if people are being used at the best capacity. So at least during that surge period, you're getting the best that you can out of people. So that's one key thing. But you always, I would say, have to balance that with some sort of qualitative metric like satisfaction as well, because you want to keep your eyes on how customers are responding to crises and to your response to crises, and can use that or some quality assurance program as well to complement any efficiency metrics to make sure that you're maintaining a minimum standard of quality in terms of the service delivery.
Perfect. Tim, Grant, would you like to add to this?
No, I think that's exactly it. Like Colin said, right? It's a balance between utilization and customer satisfaction, ultimately. But every company is a little different, so that balance looks different by industry, by size of company. But generally, it's a combination of those two.
Great. And we have completed right in the nick of time, and I would like to first thank all three of you I am absolutely educated today. There are a lot of things that I would like to dwell on and read more upon. And I must say that Freshworks and Unbabble are really doing a fabulous job. I've been taking down some notes, and I would like to summarize our discussion. We begin with, what are the surge periods and what are the challenges or the pain points, and we realize that surges can be planned and they can be unplanned. Planned ones are something which you can look at, which probably is like a Black Friday or the holidays, and the unplanned ones are like our pandemic or a service outage or a natural disaster. And at the end of the day, this can cause a perfect storm. And at the end of the day, when you look at the pain points, it can cause a high volume of tickets, lack of native speakers, slow response times, need of self-service options, agents spending more time on repetitive tasks, and the list goes on. And at the end of the day, if we really want to understand, what is it that we would need to ask ourselves before we plan an investment, or for that matter, even submit something to the seniors in our organization, we need to ask critical questions like, will it reduce our labor costs? Will it help us achieve more by, putting less agents to work on? Will it really improve our customer experience? Will it really improve or increase our productivity? And when you're able to answer these questions, you will be able to put together an investment plan. And at the end of the day, you cannot really just lean only on technology. It's very important to have a perfect balance. And at the end of the day, they shouldn't have to enter the information. The customer shouldn't have to enter multiple information at several different places. And your technology has to be integrated with the existing platforms to minimize efforts, from all the agents. And at the end of the day, we've got a lot of idea on what ticket management systems are and how important omni-channel conversations are. At the end of the day, you cannot keep anyone happy, but what works for you is extremely important. It's very important to leverage new age technologies like artificial intelligence, natural language processing, machine learning, which is where I think Grant, shared a lot of information. Of course, the example that I gave was different ways of saying the same thing, but there's a larger problem where, you have multiple people speaking different languages, and when a surge occurs, all of them come together in one pool. So I think it's very important to kind of leverage the right kind of technology and find the perfect balance. We also understood the importance of social media listening tools, because at the end of the day, it's very important for us to either have a team who can exclusively do this for us and give us the insights and the inputs, because sometimes it may lead for the business to preempt a surge, and that's very, very critical. So that level of investment of time is extremely essential. And at the end of the day, Colin and Grant actually talked about the integration of Freshworks and Unbabble together, and I found this combination to be perfect in today's times, to be able to give the kind of customer experience level. And of course, we had some fabulous questions, and I'd like to quote a particular sentence that one market leader had shared, that we all understand return on investments, but very few understand that the return on ignorance is a higher price to pay. So it's important for us to kind of understand that this is not a nice to have topic or a discussion. It is an imperative discussion in today's times for our businesses to run successfully. And in order for us to save ourselves from paying a heavier price, that is return on ignorance, it's better to invest right now. And I think that's my key takeaway from the day. Thank you so very, very much, Tim, Colin, Grant. It was wonderful speaking to you. Over to you, Fraser.
Thank you, Naina, for summarizing the panel and moderating such an insightful discussion. We thank you as well to all our panelists for your awesome participation. I'm sure our attendees had some fantastic takeaways. So with this, we bring today's virtual conference to a close. Today's session wouldn't have been a success without the active participation of all our esteemed panelists and delegates. I'd like to thank each one of you for taking your time out and being a part of this virtual session today. A special thanks to Freshworks and Unbabble for their support to this initiative, without whom this session would not have been possible. Thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen. It was great to be in your company. Take care, stay safe, have a wonderful day ahead, or a good night's sleep wherever you are.